Elena's hands moved rhythmically, wiping down the surface of the large boardroom table. Her motions practiced, efficient, and nearly invisible. She had worked in this corporate building for years, but to most of the people who passed her by each day, she was just the cleaning lady, someone to be seen only when something was out of place. The hum of conversation in the hallway signaled that the executives were arriving for their morning meeting. It would be just another day for them, another day filled with decisions that would shape the future of the company, while for Elena, it was another day spent cleaning up after them, unnoticed and unimportant. But Elena had not always been in the background. There was a time when she had dreamed of a future not unlike the ones these executives now enjoyed. Back in her home country, Elena had been a student of economics, passionate about understanding how the world worked. She was bright and ambitious, full of ideas about how she could contribute to a better society. The dream of working in a large corporation, helping to shape policies and guide decisions, had been something she held close to her heart. Life, however, had taken a different turn. After her husband died suddenly in an accident, leaving her alone with 2 young children, the bright future she had envisioned for herself began to slip away. The burden of providing for her family fell solely on her shoulders, and any thoughts of career advancement were quickly replaced by the pressing need to survive. She took whatever jobs she could find: cleaning, cooking, odd tasks, anything that would bring in enough money to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. The corporate world she had once dreamed of joining became a distant, unreachable place. Even after immigrating to a new country for better opportunities, Elena found herself in much the same position. The language barrier, the difficulty in transferring her qualifications, and the need to support her children, now growing into teenagers, meant that she could only take low-paying jobs. Cleaning offices was the one thing she could do without needing to speak much, and it allowed her to work odd hours while still being there for her children when they needed her. But the dreams of a better future never truly left her. They simply lay dormant, like embers waiting to be reignited. As she finished cleaning the room, Elena glanced at the presentation set up on the large screen. The slide was filled with numbers and graphs, and without thinking, she walked closer to examine it. Her training in economics had never left her, and though it had been years since she had worked with figures like these, her eyes quickly caught something that seemed off. The projections on the screen didn't add up. She blinked, staring at the numbers, then looked over them again. It wasn't a small error, either. If the company went forward with the plan presented on this slide, they were going to lose a significant amount of money. Her heart began to race. She was just the cleaning lady. It wasn't her place to interfere in these matters. The men and women who would soon be sitting in this room had gone to prestigious schools. They held degrees, titles, and influence. What did she know compared to them? But the longer she stared at the slide, the more certain she became. The numbers were wrong, and if no one corrected them, the consequences could be disastrous. The door opened suddenly, and Elena quickly moved back to her cart, her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the handle. The executives began filing into the room, laughing, talking about their plans for the day, and completely ignoring her presence. As she wheeled her cart out of the room, Elena felt a strange sense of unease settle in her chest. She didn't know what to do. Should she say something? Or should she keep quiet and let them figure it out on their own? Surely someone in the meeting would catch the mistake. Surely it wasn't her place to point it out. But as she continued cleaning the hallway just outside the boardroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that if she didn't speak up, no one would. Time passed, and the meeting began. Elena could hear muffled voices from inside the room, but she was too distracted by her thoughts to pay attention. Finally, she stopped and leaned against her cart, closing her eyes. She had spent her entire life working in the background, never drawing attention to herself. But if there was one thing she had learned in all those years of struggle, it was that staying silent when you knew the truth could be more damaging than speaking up. Before she could change her mind, Elena walked back to the boardroom door and knocked softly. The voices inside paused, and a moment later, the door opened. The CEO, a tall man in an expensive suit, looked down at her with an expression that was equal parts confusion and irritation. "Yes," he said, his voice clipped. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Elena began, her voice shaking slightly. "But I noticed something on your presentation. The numbers on the last slide. They don't seem correct." The room fell silent. All eyes were on her now, and for a moment, Elena wished she could disappear. The CEO raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "And you are?" he asked, his tone making it clear that he didn't expect someone like her to be involved in a meeting like this. I'm just the cleaning lady," Elena stammered, feeling a wave of embarrassment wash over her. "But I studied economics, and I think there's a mistake in your figures. If you go ahead with that plan, it could cost the company a lot of money." The CEO exchanged a glance with one of the other executives, who shrugged. Clearly, they didn't take her seriously. But after a long pause, the CEO sighed and motioned for one of the junior staff members to bring up the slide. "Show me," he said, stepping aside so that Elena could point to the screen. Her heart pounded in her chest as she explained what she had seen, her voice shaky but clear. She pointed out the inconsistencies in the projections, explaining how the error would lead to unexpected costs down the line. As she spoke, she could feel the weight of their skepticism pressing down on her, but she pressed on, determined to make them understand. When she finished, there was a long silence. The CEO stared at the screen, his brow furrowed. Finally, he turned to one of the executives. "Is she right?" he asked. The executive hesitated, then pulled out his phone to check the figures. After a few moments, his expression changed. He looked up at the CEO and nodded. "She's right," he said quietly. "The projections are off by a significant margin. If we go ahead with this, we'll be in trouble." The CEO's face darkened, and for a moment, Elena feared she had made a terrible mistake. But then, to her surprise, he turned to her with a look of genuine interest. "How did you catch that?" he asked. "I've worked with numbers for a long time," Elena replied, her voice still shaking. "I used to study economics before life took a different turn." The CEO regarded her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said, his tone softer now. "You may have just saved us from making a costly mistake." Elena could hardly believe what she was hearing. She nodded, muttered a quick "you're welcome," and hurried out of the room, her heart still racing. As she returned to her cleaning duties, she couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. She had spoken up, and they had listened. It was a small victory, but for Elena, it felt monumental. Days passed, and Elena tried to put the incident out of her mind, but something had changed. She no longer felt like an invisible part of the office, someone who was only noticed when something was out of place. She had been heard, and that made her feel more confident, more alive. Then, one afternoon, as she was finishing up her work, she received a call from the CEO's assistant, asking her to come to his office. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to hear from him again after that meeting. Had something gone wrong? Had they found another mistake? She felt a knot of anxiety form in her stomach as she made her way to his office. When she arrived, the CEO was seated at his desk, looking over some papers. He glanced up as she entered and motioned for her to sit down. "Elena, I wanted to thank you again for what you did during that meeting," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You saved us a lot of trouble, and I've been thinking, someone with your skills shouldn't be working as a cleaning lady." Elena's heart pounded in her chest. Was he offering her a job? "I'm not sure what you mean," she replied cautiously, unsure of where this conversation was headed. The CEO smiled faintly and leaned forward, folding his hands on the desk in front of him. "I mean that I'd like to offer you a position within the company," he said. "Nothing too high up to start with, but something more in line with your background. We could use someone like you on our financial analysis team." Elena sat there, stunned, barely processing the words that had just come out of the CEO's mouth. A position? On the financial analysis team? It sounded too good to be true, and for a brief moment, she wondered if she had misunderstood him. But the look on his face told her that this was no joke. Her first instinct was to say no. After all, she had been out of the game for so long, and the world of corporate finance was not the same as it had been 20 years ago. She doubted she could keep up, let alone thrive in such a fast-paced environment. And then there was the fear, what if she failed? What if she wasn't good enough? The last thing she wanted was to embarrass herself or let anyone down. But as these thoughts swirled in her mind, she also felt a small, flickering flame of hope. This was the kind of opportunity she had once dreamed of. It was a chance to put her skills to use again, to do something meaningful beyond cleaning floors and emptying wastebaskets. And as much as the idea frightened her, it also excited her in a way she hadn't felt in years. I don't know what to say, Elena finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to decide right now, the CEO replied kindly. Take some time to think about it. But I believe in giving people a chance, especially when they've proven they have something valuable to offer. You saw something none of us did, and that tells me you have the kind of insight we need on our team. Elena nodded slowly, still unsure. Thank you, she said after a long pause. I'll think about it. The CEO smiled again and stood up, offering her a handshake. Whenever you're ready, my door is open. Elena left the office with her mind spinning. The offer seemed like a dream, but with dreams came risk. She spent the next few days trying to weigh the pros and cons, going back and forth in her mind. On the one hand, this was a golden opportunity. On the other hand, it terrified her. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the fear wasn't coming from the job itself. It was coming from the idea that she didn't belong in that world anymore, that she had lost her place in it long ago. Her children noticed her distraction at home, and one evening, her eldest son, Gabriel, asked her what was going on. You've been quiet lately, Mom, he said, watching her carefully. Something on your mind? Elena hesitated, then decided to tell him the truth. She explained everything, how she had pointed out the mistake in the presentation, the CEO's reaction, and the job offer that had followed. Gabriel listened intently, nodding along, but when she finished, he looked at her with an expression of disbelief. Mom, this is amazing, he exclaimed. You have to take the job. This is your chance to do something you've always wanted. I don't know, Gabriel, Elena said, shaking her head. It's been so long since I've worked in that field. What if I'm not good enough? Her son leaned forward, his eyes full of encouragement. Mom, you're the smartest person I know. You caught that mistake when no one else did, and the CEO clearly sees your potential. Don't let fear hold you back. You deserve this. Elena smiled, touched by his words, but the doubt still lingered in her heart. She thanked Gabriel for his support, but as the days went by, she remained undecided. It wasn't until she was cleaning the office one evening, long after everyone had left, that she came to a realization. She had spent so many years living in the shadows, convincing herself that her time had passed, that she wasn't capable of more. But that wasn't true. The only thing holding her back was her own fear of failure. And if she didn't take this opportunity now, she might never get another chance. The next morning, Elena knocked on the CEO's office door once more. When he looked up from his desk, she took a deep breath and smiled. I've thought about it, she said, and I'd like to accept your offer. The CEO's face lit up with approval. I'm glad to hear that, Elena. Welcome to the team. The transition wasn't easy. Elena's first days on the financial analysis team were filled with self-doubt and uncertainty. The other employees were kind enough, but it was clear that many of them didn't know what to make of her. After all, she had been cleaning their offices just a few days ago, and now she was sitting beside them, working on complex financial reports. Some were supportive, but others were skeptical, wondering if she was truly up to the task. The work itself was challenging too. Elena found herself having to relearn things she hadn't touched in years, and the fast-paced nature of the corporate world left little room for mistakes. She often stayed late into the evening, poring over spreadsheets and reports, trying to get her footing in this new environment. But even when she felt overwhelmed, there was a part of her that was exhilarated. She was doing work that mattered, using the skills she had worked so hard to develop. And slowly but surely, she began to find her rhythm. One day, about a month into her new role, Elena was called into a meeting with the CEO and several of the company's top executives. They were discussing a new project that involved a major investment, and they needed her input on the financial projections. Elena had spent the last week analyzing the data, and she had come up with some concerns about the proposed investment. But as she sat at the table, surrounded by people who had been working in this field for years, she felt that familiar wave of self-doubt wash over her. What if she was wrong? What if they dismissed her concerns as inexperienced? But then she remembered Gabriel's words, "You deserve this." Taking a deep breath, Elena began to speak. She laid out her analysis clearly and confidently, explaining why she believed the investment carried more risk than initially thought. The room was silent as she spoke, and for a moment she feared the worst. But when she finished, the CEO nodded thoughtfully. "You've raised some good points, Elena," he said. "We'll need to take a closer look at this before moving forward." The other executives exchanged glances, and one of them leaned forward to ask her more questions. As the discussion continued, Elena realized that they weren't dismissing her, they were listening. Her voice carried weight in this room, and her analysis was being taken seriously. It was a moment of validation, one that made all the hard work and late nights feel worth it. From that point on, things began to change. Elena's confidence grew, and so did the respect she received from her colleagues. She was no longer just the cleaning lady who had stumbled into the boardroom. She was a valued member of the team, someone whose insights and expertise were respected. She continued to work hard, but the weight of self-doubt that had once held her back began to lift. Outside of work, Elena's life improved as well. Her children were thriving. Gabriel was in his final year of high school and had been accepted into a prestigious university, while her younger daughter, Sophia, was excelling in her studies and had started exploring her own passion for science. Elena's success at work had given her a renewed sense of purpose and pride, and that confidence spilled over into her family life. She felt more present, more engaged with her children, and more hopeful about the future. As the months passed, Elena's role within the company continued to evolve. She took on more responsibility, handling larger and more complex projects, and soon found herself mentoring younger employees who were just starting their careers. It was a strange feeling, being looked up to by people who were nearly the same age as her own children, but it was also incredibly rewarding. She knew what it felt like to doubt yourself, to wonder if you were good enough, and she took pride in helping others overcome those doubts. But even as Elena's professional life flourished, she never forgot where she had come from. She still greeted the cleaning staff with a warm smile every morning, often stopping to chat with them for a few minutes. They were surprised to see her in her new role, but Elena made sure to remind them that she hadn't forgotten her roots. She understood the struggles they faced, and she treated them with the same kindness and respect she had always wanted for herself. Great! Here's the continuation of Elena's story. I'll keep expanding the narrative and ensuring it flows seamlessly as we build towards the full 20,000 words. As the seasons changed, so did Elena's life. With each passing month, she settled deeper into her role at the company. She found herself increasingly engaged in projects that challenged her intellect and required her to think critically. It was refreshing, invigorating, and, most importantly, fulfilling. One particular project brought together several departments to analyze a new market opportunity. Elena was appointed as a lead analyst, a position that filled her with both pride and anxiety. Her team comprised younger professionals who were eager and ambitious, each bringing their unique perspectives and talents to the table. While initially daunting, Elena realized that her experience both in academia and life allowed her to contribute meaningfully to the discussions. As they delved into market research and analyzed competitor data, Elena took the lead in facilitating brainstorming sessions. She encouraged her team to voice their ideas freely, creating an environment where creativity flourished. It was during one of these sessions that Elena had a breakthrough moment. While reviewing the data, she noticed a trend that her colleagues had overlooked. With growing excitement, she presented her findings to the team, highlighting how this emerging trend could provide them with a significant competitive advantage. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and soon the room buzzed with energy as everyone jumped in with additional ideas and strategies. The project progressed rapidly, and as deadlines approached, Elena found herself working long hours alongside her team. Late nights turned into bonding sessions as they fueled their discussions with coffee and takeout, sharing laughter and ideas. Each challenge they faced only brought them closer together, solidifying not only their professional rapport, but also their friendship. As the project came to fruition, the presentation day arrived. Elena felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She had worked tirelessly alongside her team, and now they would present their findings to the executive board. The stakes were high, but Elena was confident. They had a strong proposal backed by thorough research, and she believed in the potential of their idea. On the day of the presentation, The boardroom was packed with executives, all eyes fixed on them as Elena stood at the front with her colleagues. Her heart raced as she introduced their findings, recounting the data analysis and the emerging market trend they had uncovered. With each slide, she watched the board members lean in closer, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. After she finished, the CEO nodded appreciatively, asking insightful questions that demonstrated he was engaged with their proposal. One by one, the other board members chimed in with their thoughts, and Elena felt a swell of pride as they discussed the potential impact of the project. It was a collaborative moment, a testament to the power of teamwork. As the presentation wrapped up, the room erupted in applause. Elena and her team exchanged excited glances, a mixture of relief and exhilaration flooding through them. The CEO stood and addressed the room, expressing his gratitude for their hard work and how this project could shape the future of the company. "We'll move forward with this," he declared, and Elena felt her heart soar. The validation of their efforts, the acknowledgement of their contribution, it was a triumph that marked a significant milestone in her journey. The days that followed were filled with celebration and recognition. The project garnered praise not only from the board but also from clients and industry partners. Elena's contributions were highlighted in the company newsletter, and she was approached by colleagues from different departments who congratulated her and sought her insights on future projects. But amidst the accolades, Elena remained grounded. She knew how quickly circumstances could change. Her success was not just a reflection of her hard work, but also of the support she had received from her team and the lessons she had learned from her past. One afternoon, after a particularly successful team meeting, Elena found herself reflecting on how far she had come. She recalled the early days of her new job, filled with doubt and uncertainty. Now, she was mentoring others, sharing her knowledge, and fostering an environment where everyone felt valued. She often thought about the cleaning staff who had once been her colleagues, and she wanted to do more to support them. Inspired by her own journey, she began to devise a plan to create a mentorship program for individuals in low-wage jobs within the company. The goal was to help them develop their skills, gain confidence, and potentially move into higher roles within the organization. Elena approached the CEO with her idea, presenting it as a way to give back and foster a more inclusive workplace. To her delight, he loved it. He believed in her vision and offered to help fund the program, emphasizing that he wanted the company to be a place where everyone had the opportunity to succeed. The mentorship program launched several months later, and Elena felt a surge of fulfillment as she watched it take shape. Employees from different backgrounds participated, sharing their stories, challenges, and aspirations. Elena created workshops that focused on skill development, resume writing, and interview preparation. She invited guest speakers, successful individuals from various fields, to share their journeys, inspiring participants to envision their own futures. As she watched the program flourish, Elena realized that she had come full circle. She was no longer just the cleaning lady who had spotted a mistake in a presentation. She had become a catalyst for change, empowering others to pursue their dreams and break free from the limitations that had once held her back. The success of the mentorship program drew attention. The company received recognition for its commitment to diversity and inclusion, and Elena was invited to speak at conferences about her experiences and the importance of mentorship. She found herself on panels, sharing her story with others who were eager to learn from her journey. Each time she spoke, Elena felt a sense of responsibility. She wanted to show others that no matter where you started, it was possible to carve out a different path. She spoke passionately about resilience, the importance of believing in oneself, and the value of community support. Her children watched her with pride, seeing their mother transform into a figure of influence and inspiration. Gabriel was now attending university, pursuing a degree in business, and Sophia had developed her own interest in science. Both were thriving, motivated by their mother's example and the values she had instilled in them. One evening, after a successful event where Elena had shared her story, he looked excited, and when she asked what was up, he eagerly pulled out a letter from his backpack. "I got accepted into an internship program," he announced, beaming with pride. "It's with a startup company that focuses on social entrepreneurship." Elena's heart swelled with joy. She embraced her son, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. "That's amazing, Gabriel. I'm so proud of you." Gabriel's eyes sparkled with excitement as he continued. "They said they're looking for passionate young people who want to make a difference. Just like you." The words warmed Elena's heart. She had wanted to show her children that they could pursue their passions and make a difference in the world, and it seemed her message had resonated with them. That night, they celebrated together, sharing their hopes and dreams over a homemade dinner. As the years passed, Elena continued to grow in her role, taking on more leadership responsibilities and advocating for those in lower-wage positions within the company. She remained dedicated to her mission of fostering an inclusive environment where everyone had the opportunity to succeed. But her journey was not without challenges. There were times when she faced resistance, moments when others doubted her vision or pushed back against changes she wanted to implement. However, she had learned to navigate these challenges with grace and determination. She knew that real change often came with discomfort, and she was willing to fight for what she believed in. One day, during a company-wide meeting, the CEO announced that they were expanding the mentorship program and wanted to make it a cornerstone of the company's culture. He expressed gratitude for Elena's tireless work and leadership, stating that her contributions had not only transformed individuals' lives, but had also strengthened the company as a whole. The room erupted in applause, and Elena felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had come so far from those early days of doubt and insecurity, and it was moments like this that reminded her of the impact she could make. She smiled, filled with a sense of purpose, and as the applause echoed around her, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. But as Elena's professional life flourished, she also became more aware of the world outside her office. Stories of economic inequality, struggles faced by working families, and systemic barriers echoed in the news. They reminded her of her own journey and reignited a passion within her to advocate for those who'd been silenced or overlooked. She reached out to local community organizations that worked with underprivileged families, offering to provide workshops that focused on financial literacy, job readiness, and skills development. Her efforts soon gained traction. Elena became a sought-after speaker in her community, sharing her story and empowering others to take charge of their futures. The connections she made with individuals from diverse backgrounds filled her with hope. She witnessed firsthand the resilience and determination of those around her, and it reinforced her belief that everyone deserved a chance to succeed. The mentorship program expanded, and soon Elena was leading initiatives that brought together businesses and community organizations to address social issues. She advocated for policy changes that would benefit low-income families and worked to create partnerships that provided access to resources and opportunities. Through her dedication, Elena became a respected advocate for change. She was invited to participate in panels, discussions, and community forums, where her voice resonated with those who felt marginalized. It was a role she embraced wholeheartedly, knowing the importance of representation and the power of storytelling. As she stood before crowds sharing her journey, Elena often reflected on the challenges she had faced and the transformations she had undergone. It was a testament to her strength and resilience, but she knew she wasn't alone in her journey. Each story she heard, every life she touched, fueled her passion and determination to continue fighting for a more equitable world. Years later, as she looked back on her journey, Elena felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had risen from the depths of uncertainty to a position where she could influence change, empower others, and advocate for those who needed it most. And yet, amidst all the accomplishments, she remained grounded. She often returned to her roots, visiting the cleaning staff and offering mentorship to those still navigating their paths. She understood the importance of lifting others as she climbed, ensuring that no one felt alone on their journey. Elena's life had become a tapestry woven with stories of struggle, triumph, and hope. Her children, now young adults, had grown into passionate individuals determined to make their mark on the world. Gabriel pursued his business degree with the same fervor that Elena had shown, while Sophia immersed herself in scientific research, eager to make discoveries that could benefit society. As Elena stood before her colleagues one afternoon, preparing to share her vision for the future of the mentorship program, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far, and her story was still being written. With each word she spoke, she felt a deep connection to everyone in the room, the cleaners, the analysts, the executives. They were all part of the same journey, each carrying their own stories and dreams. Together, they were building a future where opportunities were not limited by circumstance, but rather defined by passion, hard work, and the courage to pursue one's dreams. In that moment, as she looked around the room, she knew that the best was yet to come. Together, they could continue to break down barriers, create opportunities, and inspire future generations to dream big. The cleaning lady who once doubted her worth had transformed into a powerful advocate, a leader, and a beacon of hope for those striving to create their own paths.